For the final video in Truck Month, we're going to roll the clock all the way back to the ancient, forgotten year of 2007. Try to think back to the past of the summer of '07. Transformers hype is through the roof, Marky Mark Wahlberg is a distant nightmare, and Linkin Park rules the radio wave. The 2007 live-action Michael Bay Transformers movie is still controversial amongst fans, even 20 years after its debut. But whether you love it or you hate it, what can't be denied is the fact that it was a massive smash hit, reinvigorating the franchise. The development, production, and hype around the '07 movie's release is worth its own video, but for context, what you really need to know is that the movie grossed over $155 million on its opening week. Whether or not we as Transformers fans like the movie as an adaptation of our favorite characters doesn't matter. General audiences love the movie, and the dynamic and interesting toys were flying off the shelves. A little bit like Beast Wars 20 years prior, the 2007 Transformers live-action movie had a very limited cast of characters. This is due in part to the groundbreaking CG renders created by Industrial Light and Magic, and these effects still hold up to this day and hold up better than some modern examples. Now, due to the small cast of characters, Hasbro had to buff up the toy line any way they could. Obviously, toys were made of our intrepid heroes and vicious villains, but also of concept art nobodies and copious amounts of repaints and redecos. Early on in the '07 movie toy line, some older molds like the Cybertron and Energon Scouts were repainted and redecoed into drab military colors, such as Cybertron Hardtop, and they were offered as store exclusives. The first few waves of the movie mainline assortment included some figures based off of canceled concept art, such as RC and Wreckage, as well as a couple movie tie-in figures like Swindle. After these initial waves, Hasbro hit us with the All-Spark Power series, a few new molds inspired by on-screen vehicles, and repaints of earlier figures with generous shots of fluorescent blue paint, representing the eponymous All-Spark Power. And this brings us to one of the most iconic toys of the '07 movie line, and it's not one that appears on screen, at least not in these colors. This is Nightwatch Optimus Prime. For anyone with even a modicum of interest in the movie toy line, this is a striking and immediately eye-catching figure because gone is the classic red, white, and blue of Optimus Prime, and instead it's replaced by cold, steely navy blue, black, and silver. Even though Nightwatch Optimus Prime is a repaint of a prior figure, you can tell that this was meant to be the flagship of the All-Spark Power line, as Hasbro put everything they could into making this figure a showstopper. And that starts from the ground up, as Prime turns into an absolutely massive Peterbilt long-nose style truck. And this thing dwarfs virtually any other figure from the era. The vehicle mode isn't as big as the previously reviewed Kenner Mask Rhino, however, it is big enough that you can kind of fudge the scale. Matt Tracker doesn't look massively out of place here. And when you place him with any of the other movie Autobots, he is a commanding presence. He looks like he is leading the charge against Decepticons. Much like Scourge, this figure is truly from another era of toy design and engineering. It's both massive and massively complex for the time. Now, compared to modern movie figures and Masterpiece toys, Nightwatch Prime is quite intuitive. However, for the time, it was boundary pushing. And it's complex enough that I'm not going to bother showing it on camera, we're just going to cut to the robot mode. The cold tones continue in robot mode, as we do get more gray and silver revealed, however there are some splashes of a light gold as well as purple. This color palette, combined with the yellow eyes activated by the electronic automorph gimmick, really makes this figure feel reminiscent of the Diaclone-powered Convoy cab. Whether or not this was intentional is a little difficult to say. Hasbro was indeed making some deep cuts in '07, but also they're nowhere near as prevalent as they are today. Now, as previously mentioned, he does have lights and sounds, and this is because leader class and large-scale figures of this era were expected to have just a little extra zhuzh for the price point. Now, despite his impressive size and electronic features, one of the things that kind of lets him down in my opinion are his accessories, or lack thereof, really. Now, admittedly, I am spoiled by modern figures and their accessories, but I do wish this one just had a little bit more, especially considering Optimus Prime uses large blades in the movie in addition to his gun. This figure does have the arm-mounted and integrated ion blaster, and it folds over his hand in a very clever way. I'm a little mixed on the integrated weapons in Transformers. Sometimes I think it's done very well, like in Transformers Prime, and even the movies to a certain extent. and other times I think it's a little lazy. It just kind of depends on the execution. The one thing I do really wish this figure included, though, was an Allspark. The Allspark Cube is very central to the movie, and the Japanese Allspark Power line included small Allspark accessories. And I feel like this one, of all the figures, needed to have one in the American toy line. But again, that's just me being spoiled by modern design standards. And keeping your mindset in that of 2007, this figure is truly a spectacle to behold. Not only is there an insane amount of engineering work on display, but detail and sculpt work. It's hard to imagine the fact that Hasbro and Takara just got finished designing the Cybertron and Classics toy line right before the 2007 figures. Now, this engineering work would be quickly blown out of the water by the subsequent 2009 Revenge the Fallen toy line, one of the most notoriously complex toy lines in the history of Transformers. One that I love personally and I think is a very high point in the entirety of the franchise. The engineering on the Revenge of the Fallen toy line was so insanely complex and unintuitive that Hasbro had to mandate simplified toys for the following Transformers 3 toy line. And from that point on, the movie figures started to become a little bit more cohesive and a little bit more in tune with the engineering scene on the contemporary Generations figures. Despite the impressive engineering on display, Nightwatch Optimus Prime's articulation is very lacking, and this is due to all of the vehicle mode kibble hanging off of him. As I've said before, toy engineering is sometimes more art than science, and translating the complex and highly detailed CG models provided by Industrial Light and Magic was no easy feat for Hasbro. However, considering the time and place this figure was made, I think it's a respectable interpretation of the on-screen model. Optimus Prime's characterization and depiction in the live-action movies is a bit of a hot topic issue amongst Transformers fans, as, at least in my opinion, it's a focal point for what people both like about the movie series and intensely dislike about the series. Now, in the 2007 movie proper, Optimus Prime doesn't exactly have the same dadly demeanor of his G1 counterpart. In the movie, he's a little distant and a little aloof, but there is a stoic warmth to him. You can see why the Autobots chose him as a leader, and that aloofness is informed by the context of the story. You do get the sense that Optimus Prime and his Autobot team are very much on the back foot, that they've had a few too many bloody noses from the Autobot-Decepticon war, and the Allspark really is their best chance to win this once and for all. And you do get the little lore tidbit during Megatron and Prime's fight that they were brothers, and there was a horrific betrayal between the two. Whether or not they're literal brothers or metaphorical doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, because it changes depending on which novelization, comic book, or script you're reading. But the point is, it gives you enough backstory and enough information to see why the characters developed the way they did. And on paper, that makes for a very clean and straightforward characterization. The problem comes in and how that contrasts with his actions. Now, in the 2007 movie, he gets into two major fights, one with Bone Crusher and one with Megatron. Of course, Megatron is a knockout, drag-out fight. That's how you have to do it between the two leaders. However, the fight with Bone Crusher, at least in my opinion, is a little more brutal, especially considering Prime literally shoves his sword down his throat. Now, I don't think this is a bad scene by any means. I think it's actually very dynamic and interesting. It's a spectacle of special effects. And I do think it tested pretty well with audiences, or at least got their attention, because from that point on, Prime's kills in the series would get a lot more intense, almost going on slasher movie level. Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen is definitely where he starts going real overboard.
Oh my god!
I mean, you can chalk it up to the fact that he died and isn't very happy coming back, so we'll give him a little bit of a mulligan on these near war crimes.
Give me your face. Oh shit! I rise, you fall.
Transformers 3 is almost pure ultraviolence through and through. It's pretty heavy metal. Give Me Your Face has been a meme in the Transformers community for well over a decade now, and while as cool and spectacular as these scenes are, they don't really serve to further Optimus Prime's character, and this is kind of where the schism comes in. Do I want a badass Optimus Prime, or do I want a caring Optimus Prime?
Oh no! Oh my god!
Heated arguments about this between Transformers fans still go on to this day, and honestly, it feels a little bit like a precursor to the schism and tribalism we see in the DC community when it comes to Zack Snyder's Snydergeddon, Snyder Cut Superman versus James Gunn's the movie hasn't even come out at the time of this recording Superman. And by the way, I'm not saying one is better than the other, one makes you a bad person, one makes you a good person. There are things to like about any of these things, and there are aspects to dislike. It's just about nuance, and honestly, the arguments are pretty grating and pretty annoying, and that does go for the Transformers fans as well. I like some aspects of movie Optimus Prime. I dislike others. It's a catch-as-catch-can kind of thing, and you know what? To be perfectly honest and somewhat controversial, I do really like the 2007 movie Prime design. In fact, I like all of the robots that ILM created for this movie. While they're not great reinterpretations of the original characters, they are unique and interesting in and of themselves, and they make for fun and dynamic toys. And I think Nightwatch Optimus Prime here is a great example of that, especially because of his color palette. The cold blues and steely grays really suit the harsh mechanical aesthetic that ILM was going for, and honestly, I think it fits them way better for this character design than the traditional red, white, and blue of Optimus Prime. The thing is, though, it does remove all of the warmth, even that stoic aloofness that the 07 movie had. It almost makes it feel like this is a Prime from another time and another place, where the war is wearing on him, and arriving on Earth has made him almost disillusioned with the effort. Nightwatch Optimus Prime almost feels like Optimus without the optimism. The more and more the war marches on, the more and more tired he is, not only of Earth, but Cybertron and these people, the Autobots and the Decepticons, and he's tired of being caught in the tangle of their lives. Well, that's a downer. Anyway, thank you for joining me here on PDX Toy Collective for Truck Month, the first of hopefully many themed months. I think it was a fun time and a rousing success, so I'll see you soon with a new video.